Okay, so today's talk is called the Con of Non Duality. Yeah, and I was reflecting on this when I was trying to make up a title, actually. And sometimes when it's really hard to make up a title, I go through YouTube and look at other teachers and copy one of their titles. Just because it's hard to think of titles after like 13 years of online talks, thinking of new titles. And you know, when I was going through, I realized that a lot of the popular videos are ones that that are about getting non-duality instantly. You know, like 10 steps to get non-duality, 10 steps to stop suffering, or listen to this video and you will understand everything, or you will see through the illusion. So a lot of the popular videos, including maybe mine, are the ones that make the realization of non-duality seem really easy, or something that you already have. But what I thought, or what came up, was it's kind of like a little bit of a con in a way, because it's like a play on words, because non-duality is really easy to see in a way, because it's you. It's also really complicated because you're masked by thoughts. So it's really simple because it's you. It's right here. It's this. It's so simple and close to you because it is you. But when you've got lots of thoughts going on, that's so abstract. In fact, it's impossible to see because the thoughts are seemingly blocking everything, and the thoughts become an energetic expression in the body, making it feel like you are here in relationship to life. Whereas really, there is this, and there is nothing else but this. And this is who you truly are. And that recognition, that energetic recognition, not a mental recognition, but an energetic collapsing, is freedom. But it's incredibly complex because most people are very full of ideas and thoughts. So they look for the answer in thought, they look for an answer in ideas. And this is where non-duality seemingly can be the con, because you know, you after 50 years of life or 40 years of life, you realize that your life isn't working and lots of suffering is beginning to emerge. So maybe you're going through a midlife crisis, and then, you know, if you go to therapy or if you go to a lot of spiritual practices, it's a lot of effort, and often people are really tied to life. You know, they have children, they have lots of commitments, and their life is very busy or very chaotic, and they can't do all of these things, and not to mention addiction. So they might be very addicted to things, which also means they can't do it. So making time for doing a bit of yoga or breathing work becomes very hard if you've got lots of addictive behaviors happening. And so this promise of non-duality, that you just listen to a video and there can be an instant enlightenment or an instant freedom, is very alluring. And you can see it by the YouTube video clicks and algorithms, that people like those titles, which is super understandable. It actually made me think of a family member at the moment, and this is another reason why I wanted to talk about this, is that they're in burnout, and they I don't know if we have that in English and American, but yeah, often I'm speaking with people that's second language is English, and so sometimes the words are different. So burnout is not a nervous breakdown. When I first heard burnout, I thought it was a nervous breakdown. Burnout is when you've exhausted yourself. So when you've like worked so hard that you've pushed your nervous system over its limit, and then your body goes into exhaustion. And then you have to be really careful, because it's very important in the first year or 2 years that you take time to recover from that, because if you keep doing that to your body, it can create a lot of illness. And in a lot of countries with good social systems, they have retreats for people that have burnout. I don't know if we have that in the UK. I don't know if the social system's as good as a lot of the European counterparts, and they have these retreats to help people recover from burnout, because they know how important it is for those first few months or few years to really settle the nervous system back down. And just thinking about this person in burnout, like, I can imagine it would be really hard for them to do positive things for themselves, because they're so uncomfortable in their body. To sit and do an hour's meditation or hour's yoga practice or an hour breathing is really hard, because they're in a very bad way mentally and they're very exhausted. So I can imagine just listening to non-duality and being passive for somebody in that situation would be very relaxing, which it's better than nothing. But my experience of this subject of the collapse is that I really had to go through what's described as the dark night of the soul. I really had to confront myself. So for 10 years, I did it very extremely, like starting off going on retreats where I'd meditate for 10 hours a day, going on solo retreats, like many, many retreats. So I became really used to sitting through pain, and sitting through anxiety and discomfort and emotions. And then I began to obsessively listen to non-duality. I carried on meditating, I carried on doing yoga. At the time, I didn't really like yoga, but I did it because I had backache. I did psychology, I went to psychologists. And then when I met Roger, my teacher, I then lived in the bush with him, and I couldn't really work. I did do a bit of work. I did massage at this retreat centre that lived nearby. But firstly, I couldn't work because of visas, and then secondly, I couldn't work because I was releasing so much. Like, I was going through so much hell and energetic movements, where I would like lay in bed and like almost be shaking for 3 or 4 days. And I was really lucky I had that space and that support of Roger, that I wasn't going mad. And it was like really like the worst emotional, mental agony that I'd ever experienced. Like sitting, like going into a forest for 3 years and concentrating on this the whole time, and having like 5 hours of satsang with Roger every day, most days, then going in and doing this like emotional release. And then I also was doing qigong and breath work and body work. Like, I was totally fixated on that. And and if you counted out all those hours that I did, like me and my partner, we went through like how many hours like emotional work I did with Roger, and it's like 20 years or 30 years of like 1 hour therapy session or 2 hour therapy session like every week. Like, it was really intensive. This isn't the way for everybody, and there are some people that just have these spontaneous awakenings. I don't want to take away any possibility from anybody, but I just wanted to bring that up, that the idea that non-duality is the quick route or the fast route to this is illusory. Illusory because there is no route, there is only this moment, and illusory because in the apparent timeline, most body-mind mechanisms have to go through a mega breakdown of their belief systems and their ideas. And that is really painful, because ideas tend to be energetical and physical. So confronting them tends to be a really painful phenomena. Yeah. And just in me saying that, like from working with people for all these years, I just understand from me saying that, that can evoke shame. I haven't done enough. And it's just catching that, like seeing the illusion of it. When I was with Roger, he wouldn't let me away with shit. If he said something and then shame came up, that was the slide inwards. It's like really confronting and embodying and feeling, what you feel. Really, in every moment, being ready to accept what is here. And then also to give it all away, because who has shame? Who is going through this process? It's really a radical letting go of everything. Non-duality is like the finale. It's like when you're really deep into this, it's the ending part. And that's why a lot of people, after they have the shift, just speak pure non-duality, because that's the truth. That's what you sink into, that there is nobody here in relationship to a world. There is simply everything expressing itself. And it also feels like really glorious to say these words, because it is the truth. But it's like the final part, the tipping part that tips you over the edge, that nobody ever awoken. That whole spiritual journey that you've been on belongs to no one, because who are you but this right here, right now? It's a live presence. There is nothing that's come before, and there's nothing that's going into the future. But when you believe you're a person coming from the past and going into the future, there has to be a letting go of that. And that's normally emotional and energetical. You have to become aware of the illusions. Like Nisargadatta Maharaj would say, discernment, discerning your illusion. So if now when I say about my past, you're feeling shame that you haven't done enough, it's discerning that and seeing that it's an illusion. So there it comes. So maybe you feel shame in the solar plexus, so always connecting it to the body. So there's shame in the solar plexus, and that isn't true. There is an energetic sensation coming up now that's trying to get me in thinking mind and into seeking. So whipping yourself that you've not done enough is seeking and is maintaining a you. That isn't your truth. What is true is this moment, right here, right now. Or say if you've gone into excitement, maybe you've gone into like, yeah, I could do that. I'm going to do what Lisa did. I'm going to copy it. And then I am going to make it. That too is an illusion. So maybe you feel that as a really positive energy in the heart of hope, which is really beautiful. Enjoy that positivity. However, it's also not true. So you go to the feeling of it. You feel it. You allow it. You ask, is there anything underneath it? Am I telling myself that story because I'm afraid? Or am I telling that story to try to be better than others? That I can be better than someone. So just recognizing that feeling, most probably in the heart, and feeling it, and discerning, this is thought, this isn't my truth, it's not practical. So Ramesh and Roger talk about practical thinking as opposed to illusory thinking. It's just happening, it's not a truth, it's not me. Who I am is this alive freedom right here, this beingness, an empty looking, that has no words. Has no words. Who you are is wordless. So as a practice that you can do is you can put your attention in the empty looking or the feeling of I am. feeling of existence. So if you put your personal awareness in your personal awareness, that's the gateway to the big consciousness. If you put the attention in your feeling of I am, that's the gateway to the beingness. They're like the two portals in which consciousness and beingness operate through. And they're not really inside a body belonging to someone. They're everywhere and nowhere. That's one practice. Another practice that you can do, even though all of these things aren't really practices, because who practices? They're descriptions of something that may happen. But another practice that you can do is trying to resonate with me at a deeper level, at the Shakti love level, the feminine level, the everything level. I think that's my way of teaching, is this energetic love way of teaching. It's not really about the intellect or what I say, even though that has relevance, but I feel like the words and my being are calling you back to the love of what you are, the beingness, the everything, and the empty looking. And the way you do that is you can listen to what I'm saying, but then also don't listen. That's weird. Like, put immense tension in what's happening. So it's like you're listening and not listening. Yeah, this is so insanely beautiful. Maybe there's also something with my eyes, if you look into my eyes as well. But it's not about trying to get something from me, and it's not about me having it as opposed to you. It's like their reminder of what you are. Sometimes it might feel like you're falling in love with me, but that's really an illusion as well. That's an interpretation, because what you are is like love that we experience when we fall in love, but it's this love that's you, that's totally grounded here and present. So it's your own love. That's why sometimes it's a little bit difficult being a feminine teacher of this. Like I don't mean feminine as in women, I mean feminine as when you express the feminine side, like the feminine side is the love, the beingness, because that's my big thing that I express. It sometimes can be really misinterpreted and seen as like a romantic, personal love. And if that happens, use it. You don't need to be embarrassed or ashamed about that. I fell in love with my teachers. With Ramesh it happened, but Ramesh was like 91 years old when it happened, and he was like speaking, and it was really sweet what happened. Actually, I'm just going to tell the whole story. So there's another teacher online called Gautama. I've forgotten his last name. I think he's on my website under reference pages. He's from Mumbai, and and so Ramesh was sitting there talking, and Gautama always on Sundays used to sit behind Ramesh's seat. So he would sit on the wall behind Ramesh's seat. They were very close, Gautama and Ramesh. And I was sitting in front of Ramesh, looking at Ramesh. This was before I'd met Roger or knew of Roger. Actually, yeah, it's funny how life happens. Like, yeah, and he was sitting there, and I suddenly like had this feeling of going forwards and like really falling in love with Ramesh. But it was like my mind couldn't handle that, you know, like a 91-year-old. Like I couldn't like do that. So then it was like my sight just moved over to Gautama, and like I fell so in love with Gautama in that moment. That was really, really sweet. Yeah, he knows about that, like that experience happened. I told him. Yeah. And it just was like he was like the most beautiful man in the world in that moment. This is sometimes maybe why teachers give advice of celibacy, because it gets very confusing, these things. And then also when your chakras open, you can have an immense release of sexual energy. And this is why it's a bit difficult being a feminine teacher of this, especially when you're in a female's body. Like the community needs to look after that teacher that expresses in that way a little bit, because yeah, some intense stuff can come at her, and it can sometimes, I have to say, be a little scary, I suppose. Like you know, when, yeah, because it can sometimes turn very dark. I mean, that's part of it. I don't see that, you know, I've talked online about online abuse that I've received, and it's part of it. This whole Shakti feminine energy. And the feminine teachers, which often happen to be female as well, they have to really stand in that and really face that. And so any shadow or any stuff that's left here, I have to really face the dark side of the masculine energy that can come, which can come from females or males. You know, it's not one or the other. But when it comes from huge, massive men, sometimes I can tell you it can be a little intimidating. Yeah. And I would just encourage, you know, especially as a new year, it's a good time to do this. But you know, if you're really serious about this subject and you really seriously want to give your life to it, really commit. This is more important than anything. That's what I did in my 20s. You know, before the shift happened, I went to Ramana's cave, and I said to Ramana, you can take everything, even my life. Everything. And I went through everything, and I sat there and cried. I cried many times about that, but I really meant it with my whole heart, that he could have everything. That's also another tradition in the Bhakti tradition, is giving the guru everything, like your suffering, everything. And I just gave him my whole life. Like if death has to be my journey for this, then let that be. I give it all to you. Yeah, and just being honest with yourself. If it's not that you're really committed to this path and this realization, if it's that it's more about getting out of the immediate suffering of your life, then there are maybe other things. This is a really extreme subject. It's really extreme. I walk around totally empty. So different. Like I'm empty. And it's like sometimes being on drugs. Well, all the time actually. There's nothing here. And yet there's this profound love. And then you're dealing with people that are all believing that something's here, and you're like, and you're so wildly in love with them, and if they knew. Okay, so I'll stop recording now. So people that are listening to this on YouTube, if you want to get these, I'm doing these little private chats in the Telegram group. If you want to join them live, you can. I'm now going to do question and answer where it's not recorded, and people can just ask without it being recorded and it totally disappearing into the ether after they've asked a question. Yeah, if anything ever does really disappear. So yeah, you can find that out in the box below, how to join the Telegram group if you want to. Doop, doop, doop. Yeah, thank you everyone online, on YouTube, not in Zoom. Yeah, I really wish you everything.